It has remained my most treasured possession.
It was a few months later that I read with great interest your description of my death. It was excellently done, a most picturesque and exciting piece of fiction.
Well, I'm certainly glad from the bottom of my heart that it was fiction. But what did really happen?
When I reached the ledge, I stood at bay. He drew no weapon, but rushed at me and threw his long arms round me. He knew that his game was up and was only anxious to revenge himself upon me. I have, however, some knowledge of Baritsu, or the Japanese system of wrestling, which has, on more than one occasion, been very useful to me.
My God. But how did you get away from that place?
It was not a pleasant business. Even as Professor Moriarty disappeared into oblivion, it struck me what an extraordinary lucky chance fate had placed in my way. I knew that at least one of Moriarty's henchmen would seek my demise now, with even keener determination to revenge their dead leader. But if I could convince the world that I too was dead. So I decided to disappear, then and there.
Heavens above. But the tracks, Holmes. I saw them with my own eyes. 2 went down the path and none returned.
I'm not a fanciful person, Watson. But I give you my word, there were times during that climb when I seemed to hear Moriarty's voice screaming at me from out of the abyss. At last I reached a place where I was able to remain unseen. From my concealed place, I watched you and your followers investigating in the most sympathetic and inefficient manner the circumstances of my death. At last, when you had all formed your inevitable but totally erroneous conclusions, you departed. It was time for me to be on my way. Of course, the meaning of this was obvious. Moriarty had not been alone. A confederate, from a distance, had been witness to his friend's demise and my escape. I did not take long to think about it, Watson. I took to my heels and covered 10 miles over the mountains in the pending darkness. A week later, I found myself in Florence, with the certainty that no one in the world knew what had become of me. I had one confidant, my brother Mycroft. I had to confide in him in order to obtain the money I needed to live.
Of course.
I owe you many apologies, my dear Watson. But it was all important that it should be thought I was dead. And it is quite certain that you would not have written so convincing an account of my unhappy end had you yourself not thought that it was true. I have taken up my pen to write to you, but always I feared lest your affectionate regard might tempt you to some indiscretion which would betray my secret.
I would have thought I was as trustworthy as your brother.
Of course you are, Watson. But you have a kinder heart.
But what have you done all these long years?
Well, you may have read of the remarkable explorations of a Norwegian called Sigurdsson. But I'm sure it never occurred to you that you were receiving news of your friend.
You...
For 2 years, I traveled to Tibet and amused myself by visiting Lhasa and spending some time with the head lama. I then moved to Persia and paid a short but interesting visit to the Caliphate in Khartoum, the results of which I passed on to Lord Kitchener and the Foreign Office, anonymously, of course.
You mean you actually saw the palace where Gordon was murdered?
It was a sorry sight, a ruin. His blood still upon the staircase. Lately I've been in France, in Montpellier, researching into the coal tar derivatives. Then came the news of this remarkable murder, which not only appealed to me by its own merits, but which seemed to offer some most peculiar personal opportunities. So here I am.
Have you been to Baker Street?
Yes. I called there this morning in my own person.